Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Keegan here. I'm back with another video for you guys and I'm hoping you're all having a great day so far. Anyways, it's time for another collection video. So, the other day I posted a poll on my community tabs asking you guys whether I should do my Scream Factory or my Criterion collection as my next collection video. Well, a majority of you, well, most of you voted for the Criterion collection, and well, that's what's going to be the subject of this collection video. Honestly, I'm not really surprised that the Criterion collection got the most votes on the poll because everybody loves Criterion, and I love Criterion too. They're definitely some of the best distributors of boutique labels when it comes to physical media. And I've been collecting Criterions for a long time, for about 7, almost 8 years. And I have a total of 79 Criterions to show, so this is going to be a pretty long video. And of course, I won't go into too much detail on every single Criterion that I own because that's just going to take too long, but I'll go into a little bit of detail, but not too much as I can. Another thing I would like to say before we get started with this video is that I've shown a lot of my Criterions many times before in the past, whether it be a collection update videos or in the many versions of my Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray collection videos that I do yearly. Because if you've been on my channel for a while, then you probably know since 2020, I've been doing an updated version of my Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray collection videos that I do like once a year because that collection keeps on getting bigger. And in those videos, I show off all my boutique labels that I own. But in this video, it's just going to be a standalone video on all the Criterions that I own on Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, plus the one Laserdisc that I own, which we will be showing first when we get started. And as always, we will be going in on order by numbers to letters A to Z, and movies with the in the title. The first letter of the second word will fall under that letter. Say, for example, The Night Porter, that would be in the N. So yeah, you get the point. Anyways guys, let's not waste any more time and let's get started. It's going to be a long video. So as promised, we're going to be starting off with the only Laserdisc that I own, and that is Pulp Fiction. I got this one for $50 at an antique store, and I figured why not. Now, right off the bat, I would like to say I don't own a Laserdisc player, and will I ever get a Laserdisc player? Probably not, but I mainly bought this just for collecting purposes. And Criterion released a lot of these movies on Laserdisc back in the 90s. But again, I don't have a Laserdisc player. I bought this for collecting purposes, but I do own the movie on Blu-ray and VHS. But not much to say about this one. Pulp Fiction's a classic film. It's quotable, and even if you haven't seen it, you probably seen clips of it or quotes of it, if you know what I mean. It's a big pop culture icon of a film. But yeah, you can't go wrong with it. You can't go wrong with Tarantino and his other films. I believe this is the only Tarantino movie to ever get a Criterion release. I'm not exactly sure. This one never got a DVD release. Well, from the Criterion collection at least. It never got a DVD or Blu-ray release. But yeah, it's pretty cool to own, especially for $50. You can't go wrong with that one. Now I'm going to start getting all the Blu-rays and 4K Blu-rays, and I will be showing them all in a stack. So I'm just going to go get the first stack, and yeah, I'll be right back. Alright, so starting off with the first stack, we got 8.5 from Federico Fellini from 1963. I watched this one about a year ago, and I can totally see what the hype is all about for this one, although I didn't quite love it like a lot of people do, but I enjoyed it for what it was. But I don't know, maybe I'll appreciate it more if I rewatch it several times. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was, but I'll definitely sit down and give this one another watch, and maybe I'll appreciate it more on a second viewing or something. But yeah, not much to say about this one, and it's the only numbered title that I own as well. Anyways, Next up is All About My Mother by Pedro Almodovar from 1999. I watched this one once about 2 years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I should definitely give this one a rewatch at some point. I do enjoy Pedro Almodovar. He's a great director. He's one of my favorite directors. And yeah, he's quite an interesting director. I do have two more. Yeah, I do have two more Pedro Almodovar Criterions you'll see in this video. But this is the first of the three that I own. One movie from Pedro Almodovar that, well, two actually, that I hope that appear in the Criterion collection is Talk to Her and The Skin I Live In. Talk to Her is one of my all-time favorite movies. And surprisingly, that one doesn't even have a Blu-ray release yet. I actually revisited Talk to Her not long ago, and yeah, fantastic movie. And The Skin I Live In is a fantastic movie too. That's one of his best films. I do own that one on Blu-ray, but the Blu-ray of that one's out of print though. But hopefully those two make a Criterion release one day. Anyways, moving on, we got Antichrist from Lars von Trier from 2009. I like some of Lars von Trier's movies, but I'm not a big fan of Lars von Trier, but he does make some interesting movies. Yeah, Antichrist. A beautifully shot film, but a pretty disturbing movie at best. And both William Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsborough, yeah, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Both of them are really good in this movie. I would recommend it, but it's not for everybody, and I will have to warn you, it is a pretty disturbing movie, but I enjoyed this one for what it was. It's a beautiful film, but a very disturbing film. But, yeah. Anyways, next up, Bamboozled from Spike Lee and was released in 2000. I actually really enjoyed this one. I thought this was a really underrated Spike Lee movie. You got this guy, Damon Wayans plays as a television executive who has an idea for a TV show for a network that's not doing very well. He has all these black actors wear quote-unquote blacker, make them wear blacker faces. It's basically just blackface in the new millennium, and then it causes a lot of problems. Well, it shouldn't really come as a surprise, but I really enjoyed this one. I thought this one was really underrated, and the montage around the end of the film was definitely kind of opens your eyes of what it was like back in those days, of like how representation in the media affects like a certain group of people or something like that. But I really enjoyed this one, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. I find not a lot of people really talk about this one, but I really enjoyed Bamboozled. I thought it was really underrated. Anyways, the next one is the first box set, and not the only box set you're going to see in this video. And that is the Before Trilogy, directed by Richard Linklater. And the spine for Before Sunset is sticking out, but that's alright. Anyways, in this set, it comes with Before Sunrise from 1995, Before Sunset from 2004, which recently turned 20 last month, and Before Midnight from 2013. Now, for Before Sunset, I really enjoyed this one. This is my favorite one in the trilogy. Both Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, or how do you pronounce her last name? They are both really good in this film. Yeah, it's my favorite one in the trilogy. Before Sunset, a lot of people regard this one as the best. I would say it's the second best one. I thought this was also a great sequel. And surprisingly, it's pretty short. It's only 80 minutes. And for its 80-minute runtime, it uses its runtime really well. And yeah, great sequel. And Before Midnight, on the other hand, while not as good as the first two, I still thought this one was pretty good, but it wasn't as good as the the first two movies. And one thing you'll notice, these movies all come out 9 years apart. So, yeah. And I really like this box set. It's a great trilogy, and Criterion did a good job releasing this box set. And, yeah, if you like these kind of, like, romance type of movies, and, yeah, you'll probably enjoy these ones. These are probably some of the best romance films ever made. But, yeah, really great box set. I'm very happy to have this one in my collection. Next up is Belle de Jour from 1967 and directed by Louis Buñuel. Yeah, Louis Buñuel. I watched this one for the first time last year, and I really, really enjoyed this one. Catherine Deneuve, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She's really great in this film. And I find it interesting that there is no soundtrack or score at all in this movie. Like, there is no music at all in this movie. Like, none. It's kind of interesting with that, there's, like, no music at all. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'll definitely have to give this one a rewatch at some point. I really enjoyed this one. It's a really good French film, and I do enjoy me some French cinema. But, yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I think there's a few more films from Louis Buñuel that's in the Criterion collection. I can't remember, though. I don't have those, though. Anyways, moving on with Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze and released in 1999. It's a pretty weird movie. I really enjoyed this one. You got this guy who finds this little door in his office, well, in his workplace, that takes him into the mind of into the eyes of John Malkovich. It's a pretty interesting movie. It's got John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, and Catherine Keener in the film, and of course John Malkovich. I've seen it once, almost 2 years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a pretty strange movie, but one I do recommend checking out. The guy who directed it also directed Her, which is one of my favorite movies. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. Next up is Blue is the Warmest Color from 2013, directed by, now I don't know if I pronounced this right, Abdelatif Kishi? Yeah, I think I pronounced that right. And it stars Leah Seo and Adele Exarchopoulos. I don't know. This was the Palme d'Or winner of the Cannes Film Festival back in 2013. And I think it's really well deserved. My main criticism with this movie, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, I feel like the one sex scene that goes on for 7 straight minutes was a bit unnecessary. Like, if it went on for like 1 or 2 minutes, that's fine, but 7 minutes, that's just too long in my opinion. And it's one of the few titles in the Criterion collection to have the NC-17 rating. But other than my criticisms with this movie, I think it's a really well-made film, and both the two actresses in this film are both really good in the film. But just my little criticism with how the sex scene was filmed, like goes on for like 7 straight minutes, and the fact that it took literally a week for that scene to be filmed, this just makes you question the director. But yeah, other than that, it's a great movie. I definitely recommend that one. Definitely don't watch it with your parents, of course. Next up is one of my favorite movies, David Lynch's Blue Velvet. Now, if you've been on my channel for a while, you know I'm a big fan of David Lynch. I own all of his movies. I own all the movies of his that are in the Criterion collection. And, yeah, this is not the only David Lynch movie you'll see in this video. This movie's from 1986. And I know this movie recently got a Blu-ray, not a Blu-ray, a 4K Blu-ray release from Criterion. It came out like last month, I believe. I don't know if I'll get it on 4K, but we'll see. But I love this movie. I've seen it like 3 times. The last time I watched it was when one of my local theaters did a screening of it last year. And it was definitely a really good experience seeing it in theaters. I think all David Lynch movies should be seen on a big screen with a big crowd. It's quite an interesting experience. It's not the only David Lynch movie that I've seen on the big screen. Hell, all of the ones that I've seen that in theaters are all in the Criterion collection, so you'll probably hear me talk a little bit about my experiences seeing them in theaters throughout this video. But yeah, that's Blue Velvet. Amazing movie. Next up is a Wes Anderson movie, Bottle Rocket from 1996. This was Wes Anderson's debut film. A lot different than some of his later films that would come out after this one. I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson. I love all of his movies, although I still haven't seen the Darjeeling Limited yet. But Wes Anderson, he's a great director, and for this being his first film, it's pretty good. But he would definitely improve as a director with his later films, but this was a good start for his first feature-length film. And this was also Luke and Owen Wilson's first movies they acted in too. But it's a pretty good movie. Next up is a Terry Gilliam film, Brazil from 1985. I actually watched this one for the first time last month, and holy shit, this movie was amazing. It's one of the 3 Terry Gilliam movies that I've seen so far as of this video, along with The Adventures of Barry Munchausen and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And so far, out of all the Terry Gilliam movies I've seen so far, this is a 2-disc set. This one is probably my favorite. I really enjoyed this one. It's weird, it's funny, it's sad. It's just a really brilliant film and a really well-made film. And I love the daydreaming sequences in the film, like when he's flying in the air, like as seen on the cover. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm surprised that Robert De Niro was in this movie too. But as of this video, it's currently my favorite Terry Gilliam film. Just a great film. If you haven't checked it out, I would recommend it. It's a great movie. Next up is a David Cronenberg, and not the only David Cronenberg movie you're going to see in this video. That is The Brood from 1979, back when Cronenberg was making body horror movies early in his career. It's a pretty good movie. Don't really have a lot to say about this one, but I am a big fan of David Cronenberg. He's one of my favorite directors and one of Canada's finest directors. Sure, his recent stuff hasn't been quite as good, but he's still a great director. And this is the one where it has the 3 mutated kids going around killing people. And not incredibly gory, but it is pretty bloody. I thought this one was pretty fun. Next up, Come and See, one of the darkest films in the Criterion collection and one of the darkest films ever made. I watched this one once, almost 2 years ago, and while it is a great movie, it's definitely one of the best anti-war films of all time. It's definitely not one I'd ever watch again. I'm in no rush to watching it again. It's a pretty difficult film to watch with a lot of the disturbing imagery and stuff. And the fact that this movie was made in the Soviet Union back when they were still a thing, it's pretty interesting. Especially that it took the director 8 years to make the film because of the censorship and stuff that was going on at the time in Russia. But a great film, but not an easy film to watch, and not one I'd be interested in ever watching again. But it is a great one-time watch film. It'll definitely make you think about war and stuff. And the last one for the first stack is one of my all-time favorite movies and in my top 5. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I personally love this movie, and that is Crash, another David Cronenberg movie from 1996 starring James Spader and Holly Hunter. Wow, this movie, it's pretty weird to say the least, and the novel is pretty weird too. And it's another NC-17 film in the Criterion collection. I love this movie. It's weird, it's freaky, if you know what I mean. And it's just wow. I understand it's not a movie for everybody. You might like it, you might not, but I personally love this movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's pretty interesting, to say the least. But, yeah. Don't want to say too much about that one because that's going to take too long. Anyways, that's the first stack. Now I'm going to go get the second stack, and then Yep. Alright guys, now onto the second stack. So, continuing off, our next one is David Lynch, The Art Life. This is a documentary on David Lynch. And it's not really about his films. It's about his early life and his art, because David Lynch is not just a director, he's also an artist too. But a lot of you David Lynch fans probably know that. But this documentary is from 2016. I really enjoyed this documentary. I thought this was a great documentary. I would only recommend it if you're a big fan of David Lynch. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I like this, listening to David Lynch talk for like 88 minutes and showing off his artwork. But yeah, if these kind of movies look interesting to you, then I would recommend it. I personally really enjoyed this one. Next up is Dazed and Confused. This is the Blu-ray. I know this one got a 4K release a while ago. This is another Richard Linklater movie who also directed the Before trilogy. I actually revisited this one at one of my local theaters a couple months ago, and it's a great movie. Great soundtrack. Definitely one of the best soundtracks to any film. And it's pretty funny too. And this was one of Ben Affleck's first movies, actually. I think this was actually his first movie. I can't remember though. And yeah, this is also one of my dad's favorite movies of all time, along with Pulp Fiction and Full Metal Jacket. Comes with a little poster here too, but I'm not going to show that in this video. And there's the booklet there. I really like this release. It's really cool, and all the artwork and stuff, like on the cover and stuff, it looks really well done. Just give me one sec. But yeah, Dazed and Confused, great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a great movie. Next up is The Devil's Backbone from 2001 and directed by Guillermo del Toro. I really enjoyed this one. Don't really have a whole lot to say about it though, but it's a pretty strange movie. I also have this movie on 4K in the Sony Pictures Classics 30th Anniversary box set. Yeah, not much to say about this one. I really enjoyed it. It's weird. It's kind of creepy. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. I should definitely give this one another watch at some point. The next one I have here is Dressed to Kill by Brian De Palma from 1980. I've seen this movie twice, and it's a pretty good erotic thriller. It's creepy, it's suspenseful, and it's really well made. It might not fly today with today's audience, if you know what I mean. I don't want to spoil it, but if you've seen the movie, you might know what I mean. But it's a great movie. It's and definitely the twist at the end definitely surprised me. And it's got Michael Caine in it too. He was really good in this one too. Same with Angie Dickinson and Nancy Allen, who was also in the original Carrie and the original RoboCop. I know there's a 4K release of this one, but I believe Kino put that out a while ago. I'm not sure, but I do believe there is a 4K for this movie. Next up is another Spike Lee joint, and it's a classic film, Do the Right Thing. Really great film. And this is one of the few films that Spike Lee has done that tackles the issues of racism, like films like Black Klansman, Bamboozled, and I think there's a few other ones he did too that center around racism. This is probably the best, well, most well-known out of all of them. It's a great film, and the social commentary for this one is really good too. And I got this Blu-ray on I think I got this one on my birthday 3 years ago, I would say. I can't really remember. But I really enjoyed this one, and this is a really cool release. And it baffles me this movie didn't even get any Oscar nominations at the time when this movie came out back in '89. But somehow the movie Driving Miss Daisy got nominated and won Best Picture. I don't think that movie deserved Best Picture. This movie should have won Best Picture in my opinion. Just got to put this down. But yeah, this movie should have gotten an Academy Award nomination, and let alone win Best Picture, but I guess not. It just didn't happen. But again, great film, one of Spike Lee's best films. Some argue his best, but that depends on who you ask. Next up is Dogfight from 1991, and it stars the late River Phoenix, Lily Taylor, and directed by Nancy Sakova. This was one of River Phoenix's last movies before he passed away in 1993. I watched this one for the first time about a month ago, I'd say. I don't know. I watched this one pretty recently, and I really enjoyed this film. You got these guys that are shipping up to Vietnam, and just before they leave, they have a little competition on who they can find the ugliest girl to date or something. And River Phoenix bumps into this girl played by Lily Taylor, and they fall in love in the process, despite their whole love affair being a part of a bit of a misogynistic kind of game that they made. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's a great film, and River Phoenix was really good in the film, same with Lily Taylor, and yeah, rest in peace, River Phoenix. Next up is another David Lynch movie, Eraserhead. This was his first film. I actually do remember buying this one on my birthday back in 2021, and I watched it for the first time on Halloween that year. And boy, oh boy, is this movie weird. Well, a lot of just about all of David Lynch's movies are weird. This one I didn't see in a theater because it's a midnight movie, and I can't really stay up too late for like a midnight movie. But I don't know, that's just me. But maybe someday I'll see it in theaters. But I can imagine seeing this movie in the theater being a really, really weird experience. There we go. But great film, and this release is really good. You get a lot of a couple of David Lynch's short films he's made before and after he made Eraserhead, which is pretty sweet. It's got them listed right here. But great movie, and the short films in this collection are pretty weird and interesting too. And next up is another David Lynch movie, The Elephant Man, which would actually be his second film he made after Eraserhead. And this one was actually produced by Mel Brooks, of all people, who's known for comedy, but he didn't credit his name because he didn't want people to think it would be a comedy. But no, this is a drama film based on the life of, what's his name? John Merrick. Really good film. Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt, rest in peace, are both really good in the film. And it's a really sad movie, which if you know the story about John Merrick, then you know why this movie's depressing. It's rated PG too. This movie probably would have been PG-13 if this came out later in the 80s, because sometime in the 80s they would come up with the PG-13 rating. But yeah, really good film. It's a sad film, and it's a really well-made film. It's one of Lynch's best films, I'd say. One of my local theaters did a screening of this movie last year, but I wasn't able to go because I was out of town at the time. But yeah, maybe someday I'll see it on theaters. Oh shit! Hold on. Oh, there we go. Kind of hate that these slip boxes are kind of hard to put back with one hand, but I got it back in now. But yeah, great movie. I recommend that one. Next up is another French film, Eyes Without a Face, from 1960. And this one was directed by Georges Frange, that's his name. I watched this one for the first time a little while ago, and I really enjoyed this one. It's a great French horror film. It's not exactly scary, but it's pretty creepy. And it must have been really creepy seeing this one in theaters back in the day when it came out. Not a lot to say about this one, but I really enjoyed this one and recommend it if you haven't seen it, especially if you like French cinema like I do. But yeah, really good movie. It's creepy too. Next up is a classic film, Fast Times at Ridgemont High from 1982 and directed by Amy Heckerling, and the screenplay was by Cameron Crowe, who also directed Almost Famous, one of my favorite movies. Not much to say about this one. It's a classic movie. It's hilarious. And this was one of Sean Penn's first films and one of Jennifer Jason Leigh's first movies. It wasn't actually her first movie. I think her first movie was I think it was Eyes of a Stranger or something. I can't remember what the name of that movie was, but that was actually her first movie she acted in. I think this might have been her second one. I don't remember. But not much to say about this one. It's a classic. It's really funny. And Forrest Whitaker was in the movie too. Next up is another Wes Anderson movie, Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was based on the Roald Dahl novel. I actually do remember reading the novel it was based on a really long time ago, back in the 3rd grade, but I don't really remember too much about it. And this was also the first Wes Anderson movie that I ever watched. I watched this one when I was like 8 years old, before I really got into movies like how I am now. Great movie. I really like the animation for this one. I like stop motion animation movies too. They're interesting. And yeah, it's a great film. And I actually revisited this one for the first time in a few years, a couple months ago. And yeah, I think it's one of my favorite movies. It's a great movie. Next up is a John Waters movie, Female Trouble from 1974. Hilarious movie. I really enjoyed this one. I'm a big fan of John Waters. He's one of my favorite directors. And this is definitely one of his best ones he's done. Although Polyester is still my favorite John Waters movie. I don't have Polyester, but I have seen it. I would like to get the Criterion of that one at some point. But Female Trouble is still a really funny movie. How many times have I told you to play Car Accident outside? That part cracks me up. Next up is The Game from 1997, directed by David Fincher. One of the first Criterions I ever bought. This was actually the 3rd Criterion I ever bought. I'll point out what my first Criterion I ever bought when we get to it. That'll be in a little while. I've only seen this movie once a few years ago, and I remember really enjoying it, although I wasn't really a fan of the ending, which, without spoiling it, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I should give it a watch and see what I think of it now. I haven't seen this one since, I watched this one when I was like 15 or something, and I haven't seen it since then, so I should definitely sit down and give this one a rewatch at some point and see what I think of it now. And the last one for this stack is the Infernal Affairs trilogy, which includes Infernal Affairs 2, and Infernal Affairs 3. The first movie is from 2001, and the second and third movie both came out in 2003. I've had this Blu-ray for a while, but I've never gotten around to watching these 3 movies. I know, I should really sit down and give these movies a watch at some point. I know that the first Infernal Affairs movie is the movie that inspired The Departed, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and that was actually... The Departed is actually the remake of Infernal Affairs, which is interesting. But I haven't seen any of these 3 movies, but I will definitely sit down and give these ones a watch at some point. But, hold on. So yeah, I'll definitely give these ones a watch at some point. Anyways, that's the second stack, and now for the third stack. Alright, now we're on the third stack, and before we continue on, I just realized I had Infernal Affairs in the wrong section. It's supposed to be with the I's. We're still on the G's, so I put that one in by mistake, but oh well. Anyways, continuing on with the G's, we got Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, directed by Jim Jarmusch and starring Forrest Whitaker. This movie's from 1999. I watched this one for the first time last year, and I really enjoyed it. It's probably my favorite Jarmusch film that I've seen so far, along with Dead Man, which I know has a Criterion release, but I don't have it yet. It comes with a little book that is shown in the movie, which is pretty cool. But again, I really enjoyed this one. There's a couple of other films from Jarmusch that I haven't seen that I would like to check out, like Only Lovers Left Alive and a few other ones. But awesome movie. I really enjoyed this one. Apparently there were rumors saying that there was supposed to be a sequel or something, but I don't know if that's true or not. Probably not, but who knows. Next up, we got another Wes Anderson movie, and that is The Grand Budapest Hotel. I know a lot of people argue that it's his best film. While it is a great movie, but for some reason I find it a little bit overrated. It's not to say I don't like the movie. It is a great film. It's one of his best films, but I just find it slightly overrated. But that's just my opinion, though. You got some more stuff in here. This is like the booklet with the essay. You got the poster with I think it's just a poster or something. Yeah, it's just a poster. It's pretty cool. And you got this other thingy here. It's pretty cool. I really like this release of the film. I'm just gonna put it all back. But again, Grand Budapest Hotel, great movie, just a little bit overrated in my opinion. But yeah. Here's a weird one. House. This is from 1977 and directed by Nobuhiko Odashi. I think I pronounced that right. It's a pretty weird movie. I don't really want to get into too much into this movie. It's probably best you just check it out as blindly as possible. But interestingly, this was a really low budget Japanese film. And the way they made it is really impressive for the time, considering how small the budget was. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. But it's a pretty weird movie. It's funny, it's weird, and it's something, all right. But definitely check it out if you like these kind of movies that are weird like I do. Next up, The Irishman from Martin Scorsese. This movie's from 2019. And this is also my favorite film of 2019. I really enjoyed this one. I know some people say it's not as good as Casino or Goodfellas, which it's true, but I still really enjoyed this one. I've seen this movie twice. And it's a very long movie. It's 3.5 hours long. But I really enjoyed this one. And on the booklet, it's got that famous line from the movie, "I heard you paint houses." And the first disc, I think, just has the movie, and the second disc has the bonus material. And I'm just going to put it back. So, yeah, again, I really enjoyed The Irishman. It's one of my favorites from Scorsese. But, yeah, great film. I really enjoyed that one. Next up, we got another David Lynch movie once again, and that is Inland Empire. This movie's from 2006, and this was also the last feature-length film that David Lynch has made, and he hasn't really directed anything since, besides season 3 of Twin Peaks. I saw the 4K re-release of this at one of my theaters 2 years ago, and I haven't seen it since then. But from what I remember, it's a really weird movie. Well, as expected, since it's David Lynch after all. But I remember liking it. I should definitely sit down and give this one a watch again someday. It's a very long movie, too. It's 3 hours. It's David Lynch's longest film. But it's a pretty nice release. But for some reason, this never got a 4K. They just released it on Blu-ray. This is Blu-ray only and not 4K. But, oh well. And this is another 2-disc set. Disc 1 just has the movie, and the second disc has the bonus material. Next up is another box set, and this is a big one. It's the John Cassavetes 5 film collection set, which is a really cool box set. It's one of my favorite box sets that I own. Comes with 5 movies that I will take out. This is the booklet right here. But this box set comes with Shadows from 1959. Cassavetes' first film. Faces from 1968. A Woman Under the Influence from 1974, and what a lot of people argue is his best film he's directed. The Killing of a Chinese Bookie from 1976 and 1978, because there are two versions of this movie for some reason. I'm not sure why. And Opening Night from 1977. Now, I've only seen Shadows, Faces, and A Woman Under the Influence. I haven't gotten around to watching these two movies yet. I know, I should really watch them at some point. Shadows is pretty good. I thought that one was pretty good. Faces was great. I really enjoyed that one. And I know a lot of people say A Woman Under the Influence is his best movie. It's a good movie, but not my favorite from John Cassavetes that I've seen. I saw this one at my local theater last year, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Just not my favorite John Cassavetes movie. But don't get me wrong, Peter Falk and Gina Rowlands are both phenomenal in the film. It's just not my favorite Cassavetes movie. And again, I haven't seen these two yet, but I'll definitely get around to watching those ones eventually. But yeah, a very good box set. I'm really happy to have this. It's a really great box set. One of Criterion's best box sets they ever released, in my opinion. Next up is a double feature Blu-ray, and that is the complete Lady Snowblood, which includes Lady Snowblood and Lady Snowblood: Love Song of Vengeance, both directed by Toshiya Fujita. Lady Snowblood's from 1973 and the sequels from 1974. This one was recommended to me by someone I know, and I really enjoyed the first Lady Snowblood movie. It's a great Japanese film, and it's pretty bloody too for its time. And I believe that movie is one of the inspirations for Kill Bill, from what I was told, and I can totally see why. Love Song of Vengeance is not as good, but I still thought it was a pretty good sequel, but the first one was a lot better. But yeah, not much to say about these. I really enjoyed the first one, and the second one, it's not bad, but just not as good as the first one. Next up, we got yet another Wes Anderson movie, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. I actually revisited this one about a month ago, and I still really enjoyed this one. This is probably one of my favorites from Wes Anderson. It's a great movie. I know this movie didn't do very well in the box office when it came out back in 2004, which is kind of a shame. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was a really underrated Wes Anderson movie. I've seen it 3 times, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And you got a great cast in this one too. And William Dafoe was also really good in this one too, along with Bill Murray. But yeah, again, really underrated Wes Anderson movie. Next up is Life During Wartime, directed by Todd Solondz, from 2000. It says it's from 2010, but it's actually from 2009. This is actually the sequel to Happiness, which is actually going to be coming out on coming to the Criterion Collection in September, which is really cool. I do own Happiness on DVD. It's just the out-of-print DVD. But that one's, it's nice to know that one's getting a Criterion release. I actually watched this movie for the first time the other night. And it was pretty good, but it's definitely not as good as Happiness. But it was still fairly decent. It has the same characters, but they're all completely recasted with a different cast. But, yeah, it's not bad, though. Now we're going into one of the 3 4K Criterions that I own, and another David Lynch movie, Lost Highway, one of my all-time favorite movies. I frigging love this movie. For some reason, I wasn't a big fan of it the first time I watched it, but after rewatching it a few times, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's a great David Lynch film. And unpopular opinion, I actually like this movie better than Mahal and Drive. Yep, you heard me. I like this one better than Mahal and Drive, but Mahal and Drive is still a fantastic movie. And you got 2 discs. The 4K just has the movie, and the Blu-ray has the bonus material. And the Blu-ray release is just in a regular case like this one. I actually pre-ordered this Blu-ray, and this 4K Blu-ray, and I got it a few days after it came out, I think. I ordered it from Amazon. Just give me one sec. But, yep, fantastic movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And I actually saw the 4K re-release of this movie in theaters on my birthday 2 years ago, and that was an interesting experience. And, I actually have a poster of it hanging up on my ceiling. Yeah, I just wanted to show that off. But, yeah, love this movie. It's one of my favorites. And now on to the first Criterion that I ever bought, and that is the Marauder Candidate. This is the original from, 1962. I've only seen this movie once a few years ago, and I haven't seen it since I watched it, but I remember really enjoying it. And, yeah. I also have the remake on DVD, but I haven't watched that one yet. I should definitely give this one a rewatch at some point. I remember really enjoying this one. And, yeah, that was the first Criterion I ever bought. Next up is yet another David Lynch movie, and it's Mahal and Drive. Great film. It's one of Lynch's best movies. This is probably my third favorite Lynch movie behind Lost Highway and Blue Velvet. Really atmospheric. It's weird. And I find it interesting that this movie originally started out as a TV pilot for a TV show that was rejected by NBC. And then David Lynch added 20 or so minutes to make it into a feature-length film. And the end result is a surreal 146-minute long masterpiece. But it's a very weird, confusing, and a fantastic movie. Definitely one I do recommend. One of my local theaters did a screening of this movie back in September, and I went to that one, and that was an interesting experience. I just gotta put this back. But, yep, great movie. And next up, we got another Wes Anderson movie, and this was actually the second Criterion I ever bought, and that is Moonrise Kingdom from 2012. One of my favorites from Wes Anderson. I really, really like this movie. I definitely want to give this one a rewatch at some point. I've seen it twice. I should definitely give it a second watch at some point. And, yeah, great movie. I really enjoyed this one, and I really like the release of this one. You got, like, the picture of most, but not all of the whole cast. You got a map. And this magazine, which has the usual stuff, like the essay and stuff, and about the transfer, like in all the other Criterion releases. But yeah, really cool release, and a great film too. And the last one for this stack is My Own Private Idaho from 1991, directed by Gus Van Sant, and also my favorite Van Sant film that I've seen so far. And it has a young Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix in one of his last movies. Watched it for the first time last year, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought this movie was fantastic. And not much to say about it. I really enjoyed it, and I consider this one to being one of my all-time favorite movies. And that's it for that stack. Alright, on to stack 4, and we continue off with another David Cronenberg film, Naked Lunch from 1991. One of my favorite films. It's a weird movie. And the novel it was based, well, loosely based on, which was written by William S. Burroughs, is even weirder. And there's a lot of stuff from the novel that they couldn't adapt to the screen because it's pretty fucked up. It's just a weird fucking novel, and then the film here is really fucking weird too. Won't go into too much detail about it. It's probably best you just watch it as blindly as possible, but it's a weird movie. Great movie though. Next up is a classic, Night of the Living Dead, the original from the late George Romero from 1968. Great zombie movie. Shit, this one's just stuck to... Hold on a sec. There we go. I just had to shake it out of the box. I bought this one on my birthday last year, and I know this one got a 4K release, but this is the original Blu-ray release. It's pretty cool, and it looks really good on Blu-ray. Criterion did a good job with the transfer for this release. But yeah, really cool, really nice release. Next up, The Night Porter from Liliana Cavini from 1974. I actually reviewed this movie on my channel at the beginning of this year, and I really enjoyed this one. Charlotte Rampling and Dirk Bogarde, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. They are both really good in the really good in the film, and I really like the scene at the opera where she starts having flashbacks of her encounters with the Nazi who is the night porter of the hotel the main character is staying in. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's not for everybody, but I personally really enjoyed this one. Next up is Paris, Texas from 1984, directed by Wim Wenders and starring the late Harry Dean Stanton and Dean Stockwell. Fantastic film. I revisited this one a while ago. Highly recommend it. And yeah, just a great film. And the scene when he's talking to his wife, like, I don't remember those little booths or whatever you call them. Like the dialogue in that scene, it's just, wow, just so well written. But fantastic film. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Next up is another 4K and another one of my all-time favorite movies, and this one's in my top 10 for sure, and that is The Piano from 1993, directed by Jane Campion, who also directed The Power of the Dog. And it stars Holly Hunter, Anna Paquin, Harvey Keitel, and Sam Neill. Fantastic film, and the 4K transfer for this release is fantastic. They did a really good job with the transfer for this one, and wow, just a beautiful film that I highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's definitely in my top 10 favorite films for sure. Next up is The Piano Teacher from Michael Haneke, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, from 2001. This is the only film from this director that I've seen, but I would like to check out his other films like Benny's Video, The White Ribbon, Funny Games, and a couple of other ones. But this is doing one I've seen. And don't really want to say too much about this one, but let's just say this ain't no love story. That's all you need to know about this one. I actually read the novel that this movie was based on a while ago, and that was interesting too. It kind of goes into why the main character is kind of a psycho, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Next up is Pink Flamingos from John Waters. Yeah, it's a pretty famous movie for the ending scene, which I'm not going to go into detail, but if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I actually really like this release. It actually comes with a little barf bag. For, I don't know, it's kind of funny, and I like how it's all like in a newspaper or something, like for the insert. I actually saw a screening of this at my favorite theater back in September, and holy shit, the reactions from the different people who were there at the screening were just priceless. It's just, excuse me, it's just a weird, repulsive, and fucked up movie, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Not my favorite John Waters movie, but it's fun. Next up, Portrait of a Lady on Fire from Celine Sciamma. I have no idea how to pronounce her last name, from 2019. Seen this one once 3 years ago, haven't seen it since then. I'd actually like to give this one a rewatch at some point. I remember really enjoying this one, but it's a beautifully shot film. It's got some great cinematography, but I should definitely give this one a rewatch at some point. Definitely. Punch Drunk Love from Paul Thomas Anderson, and also the only Paul Thomas Anderson movie that's in the Criterion collection. I hope that one day they'll release more P.T. Anderson movies to the collection, like Magnolia, Boogie Nights, and maybe even There Will Be Blood. Anyways, Punch Drunk Love, great movie. Probably my favorite my favorite Adam Sandler movie. He's really good in this movie. I think a lot of Adam Sandler's more serious roles are his best roles, in my opinion. Great movie. Next up is Repulsion from Roman Polanski from 1965. This was his first English language speaking film. and also the first film in the Apartment trilogy with this movie, Rosemary's Baby, and The Tenant, which I have on the now out of print Shout Factory Blu-ray. I really enjoyed this one. It's weird, it's creepy, and the main character's fear of men, which kind of implies she was sexually abused or something as a kid, definitely gives it a creepy vibe too. And I believe this movie is one of the inspirations for another movie called Last Night in Soho. I can't remember though, but yeah, it's I really enjoyed this one, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Next up is the last 4K Criterion Blu-ray that I own, and that is Raging Bull from Scorsese from 1980. It's a film biopic on Jake LaMotta. I've seen this movie once back in September, and I've really enjoyed it. Robert De Niro's really good in this one. He's really good in all the films he's acted in with that Scorsese has directed. But yeah, really good film. Next up is Roma from Alfonso Cuarón. I watched this one once, well, half of it a few years ago, but I never finished it for some reason. But I finally got around to watching the rest of it about a month ago, I'd say. Great film. I really enjoyed this one. It's a really well-made film. And it's another Netflix film, and another one of the few Netflix films that's in the Criterion collection. And I really like the cinematography of the film. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And Alfonso Cuarón's a great director. He also directed another movie that's in the Criterion collection that I own, that you'll see probably at the end of the video. But yeah, just one sec. But great movie. Next up is another Roman Polanski movie, Rosemary's Baby. This one's out of print. And I actually got this one brand new sealed off eBay last year. And the paper kind of looks a little messed up. But it actually looks kind of cool. It makes it look like a knife or something. But it looks pretty cool. Great movie. It is a very creepy movie. Especially all these years later. And again, this Blu-ray is out of print. So this is probably the only Criterion that I own that's out of print, not counting the Laserdisc for Pulp Fiction that I showed earlier. But great film, and it still holds up all these years later. And I know there's supposed to be a prequel movie that's coming out this year. I don't remember what it's called, but it's going to have the girl from Ozark in it. But I don't know about that one, though, honestly. Next up is another Wes Anderson movie, The Royal Tenenbaums. Fantastic movie. Maybe my favorite Wes Anderson movie? I'm not sure. But I really enjoyed this one. Great cast in it, too. And, yeah, I should definitely give this one a rewatch at some point. But I really enjoyed this one. And I can't decide if it's my favorite Wes Anderson movie or not. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Next up, Rumblefish from Francis Ford Coppola, and I believe this is the only Francis Ford Coppola movie in the Criterion collection. I could be wrong though, but I think it is. From 1983, I really enjoyed this one. It's a great film, and I believe this was one of Nicolas Cage's first movies he's acted in. I'm not sure though, but I do know that it was one of his first movies he's acted in. Really good film. I should definitely give this one a rewatch and maybe talk about it on my channel someday. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And the last one for this stack is Rushmore, another Wes Anderson movie from 1998. This was his second film after Bottle Rocket. Great follow-up film after Bottle Rocket. I also really enjoyed this one. I've only seen it once, like 2 years ago. I should definitely give this one a rewatch at some point. But yeah, it's a great movie. I really enjoyed this one. And that's it for stack number 4. And now on to stack number 5. Alright, we are on the last stack with the rest of my Criterions that I own, from letters S to Y. So, continuing on, we got the infamous Salò, or the 120 Days of Sodom. from the late Pier Paolo Pasolini, which was also his final film, and he was murdered before the film premiered, from 1976. I've only seen this movie once, 3 years ago, and I'm probably not going to watch it again, but hey, I'm happy to have it just to brag to people that I've seen it. And yeah, it's a pretty messed up movie, very disturbing, very nasty, and yeah, definitely something. Not something I'd ever watch again, but something I would never forget. It's pretty shocking, to say the least. And yeah, what more can you say about this this messed up film? But yeah, it's something, all right. Next up is Safe by Todd Haynes from 1995. I watched this one a couple months ago for the first time, and a really great film and a really interesting film. Basically, Julianne Moore plays as this housewife in the late 80s. She contracts this strange environmental allergies or something. Like, she's sick to a lot of things in the air and stuff. It's and the doctors don't seem to find an issue, so she finds like a support group that has a very similar condition to hers. But it's a pretty interesting movie. I would highly recommend this one if you haven't seen it. This is from the same director of Velvet Goldmine, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and he also did Carol and recently did May, December. But Todd Haynes, he's a great director, and this is one of his best films in my opinion. Anyways, next up is Scanners from David Cronenberg from 1981. This is famous for the famous head explosion scene, which if you've seen the movie or seen the clip of it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Great special effects, like he's known for a lot of his body horror films back in early of his career. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. And yeah, it's one of Cronenberg's best films. And oh crap, hold on a sec. There we go. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and yeah, it's a great film to watch around. Just a great body horror film. Next up is Secrets and Lies from Mike Leigh. The only Mike Leigh film that I own and have seen as of this video. This was the Palme d'Or winner of the 1996 Cannes Film Festival, and I think it was well deserved. This movie was fantastic. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. I would like to check out some more of Mike Leigh's other films, like Naked and a few other of his films. This is the only one that I've seen, but I would definitely like to check out his other films someday in the future. But fantastic movie. Next up is The Seventh Seal from Ingmar Bergman from 1957. I really enjoyed this one. It's a pretty weird movie, a very artsy film, to say the least. It's probably one of the first films that comes to mind when you think of the term art house cinema. Well, depending on who you ask. But I found it to be an interesting film. Next up is Stalker from Andrei Tarkovsky from 1979. The only Andrei Tarkovsky film that I own, but I've also seen another one, Mirror, which I would really like to get because I really enjoyed that movie. I've seen this one once about 2 years ago, and I remember liking it, but I would definitely like to give this one a rewatch at some point. Yeah, it's an interesting movie. I honestly don't really remember the storyline too well, but I do remember a lot of the imagery in the film. It's a beautifully shot film. And I would like to check out some more of Tarkovsky's other films in the future, but like I said, the only other one that I've seen was Mirror, and that one was fantastic. Next up is Straw Dogs, the original, from 1971. I actually watched this one for the first time last night, and I thought it was pretty great. Basically, you got Dustin Hoffman playing as an American mathematician who marries a British woman, well, an English woman named Amy, and they move into the town where she grew up, and they start getting harassed by some of the men who live in the town. and the wife, spoiler alert, she gets sexually assaulted by two of the men, and then they just push it too far. But it's a great film. It's a dark film, and I know there's a remake from 2011, but I hear it's not as good, but maybe I'll check it out one day. Next up is Shortcuts from Robert Altman from 1993. The only Robert Altman movie that I've seen, and I know this movie was the inspiration to Magnolia. In fact, Magnolia and Shortcuts are both two movies that are very similar, as a matter of fact, which is pretty interesting. I really enjoyed this one. I've only seen it once a few years ago, but I would like to definitely give this one a rewatch at some point. But yeah, it's a great film. And I would also highly recommend checking out Magnolia. That movie's fantastic as well. Next up, Thelma and Louise, which I watched for the first time back in February. Great film. One of Brad Pitt's first movies. I believe this was his first movie he was in, or one of his first films for sure. But great film. Both Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis are both fantastic in the film. And great movie. Next up, Thief by Michael Mann, starring the late James Caan. Watched this one for the first time a couple months ago. Great movie. And one of the only films from Michael Mann that I've seen so far, it's this and Heat are the ones I've seen so far. Heat's fantastic, by the way. I'd like to check out some more Michael Mann's films in the future. Thief, great movie. Next up is The Thin Red Line from 1998, directed by Terrence Malick. Fantastic film. And call me crazy, I actually like this movie better than Saving Private Ryan. Don't get me wrong, Saving Private Ryan is still a fantastic movie. But I don't know why, but something about The Thin Red Line makes me enjoy this movie more than Saving Private Ryan. But again, Saving Private Ryan's a great movie. Next up is another box set, and that is the Three Colors trilogy by Krzysztof Kowalski, with 3 colors blue, 3 colors white, and 3 colors red. And this is the Blu-ray release. I know they did a 4K release of this one like 2 years ago. I don't know if I'll get that, but we'll see. I got this off eBay 2 years ago, and the spine for blue and white are sticking out, but that's okay. Here's 3 Colors Blue from 1993. This movie is fantastic and is my favorite one in the trilogy. I gotta rewatch these movies sometime. I really enjoyed these. I watched them 2 years ago, and I remember really enjoying them. 3 Colors White is not as good, but I enjoyed it for what it was, but it was nowhere near as good as the first one. This movie's from 1994. It says it's from 1993, but on the new 4K releases, it says it's from 1994, so I'm assuming it's from 94. And 3 Colors Red, fantastic, but I like 3 Colors Blue the best. I should definitely give this trilogy a rewatch at some point, but great trilogy. And that's the booklet right there. Just gonna put this back really quickly. But yeah, great movies. Next up is Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down from Pedro Almodovar from 1990. I enjoyed this one. I've only seen it once a few years ago. I remember this one being pretty funny. I know the storyline might be considered problematical, but yeah, it's only a movie though. It's not like it's promoting anything bad or anything. Basically, you got this guy who gets released from an asylum and kidnaps the woman he has a crush on, who's like a porn star or something. And he basically has her held hostage, tied to a bed with handcuffs and stuff. Yeah, I actually like this. Was pretty funny. And this was had Antonio Banderas in it. But I enjoyed this one. This one was pretty funny. Next up, Trainspotting. This is the Blu-ray. I was actually contemplating on getting the 4K, but I heard the release for it is terrible. Not the release itself, just the packaging is really bad. It's not like in a regular case like this one is. So I just bought the Blu-ray instead. I watched this one for the first time back in May, along with the second movie back to back, and a fantastic film. I also really enjoyed the sequel. I thought the sequel was really good too. Next up is the last David Lynch, well, you already saw it, the last David Lynch movie in this collection video, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, another one of my all-time favorite movies. One of my local theaters did a screening of this movie back in February, and I went to it, and it was an interesting experience. And yeah, fantastic movie. It's a great prequel to the Twin Peaks TV show. It's a shame this movie didn't get the best of reviews when it came out back in 1992, but years later it's gotten a much better reception and what the kind of reception it should have deserved when it came out back in 1992. But fantastic film. It's dark, depressing, and it really ties it together with the series. But yeah, fantastic movie. Next up, The Virgin Suicides, another one of my favorite films, and this one was by Sofia Coppola. Fantastic film and a great novel. I actually saw this one in 35mm at my favorite theater a while back, and yeah, it was an interesting experience. But great film and a great novel too. Next up is David Cronenberg's Videodrome from 1983. Great movie. My second favorite Cronenberg film next to Crash, which I showed earlier. And I like how in the case it's like a little Betamax tape. It's pretty cool. But awesome movie. I'd highly recommend this one if you haven't seen it. Long live the new flesh. Next up is War of the Worlds, the original from 1953. Not the remake from Spielberg, but the original. I've seen this movie once a few years ago, but I remember thinking it was pretty good. Had some really good effects for its time when it came out back in 1953. But not much to say about this one. I enjoyed it. Yeah, the next one is a box set. I'm actually not going to open this one up. We're just going to keep it closed. It's the World of Wong Kar-wai box set. Fantastic box set. It's a really, really great box set. It comes with, one sec. Yeah, I just opened it. It comes with As Tears Go By, Days of Being Wild, Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, Happy Together, In the Mood for Love, and 2046. All these movies are really good. I think Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, and Happy Together are my favorite ones in this set. I know Chungking Express had its own release at one point from Criterion, but that release has been long out of print on Blu-ray. But yeah, really great box set. It's one of my favorite box sets that I have, and one of Criterion's best box sets in my opinion. Hold on, I just had to close it, and here's the little book it came with. It's really cool. But really fantastic set. I really love this one. It's one of my favorite box sets that I own. And yeah, just a great box set. Next up is Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. Another Pedro Almodovar film from 1988. I really enjoyed this one. I definitely want to give this one a rewatch at some point and maybe talk about it on my channel one day. But yeah, this one was great. This one was really funny. And yeah, don't have much else to say about it. And last but certainly not least, Yuta Mamatambian from Alfonso Cuarón from 2001. This movie is fantastic and a great movie to watch around the summertime. Yeah, I think I might even give this one a rewatch at some point. I've only seen it twice, but yeah, it's a really great movie. This is the original release that comes with the Blu-ray and the DVD, which the second disc has some of the bonus features. I know there's another re-release where it's just the Blu-ray and the box is a bit smaller. But yeah, this is the original, the regular release with the DVD and Blu-ray. But yeah, really great film. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Definitely don't watch it with your parents. But yeah, really good movie. And yep, that's that. Well, there you guys have it. That's all the Criterions that I own on Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, and the one Laserdisc. And boy, this was a long video. This video went on a lot longer than I thought. But hey, I said it was going to be a long video at the beginning. So, yep, that's that. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you enjoyed the video, as always, feel free to leave a like, comment below, subscribe for more videos like this. And more videos will be coming out soon. And I do plan to do my video on my Scream Factory collection video next, which will probably be coming out some other day. But until then, stay tuned for more. But anyways, guys, that's all I have to say. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day. And I'll see you guys in the next one. And yeah, take care, everybody. Peace out. Bye-bye.